We're recording. Are we recording or are we streaming?
I don't know. I asked you.
Hey, you guys have nice. Where do I get one?
Can't reveal what that is yet.
I can't. That's why I stopped. That's why I stopped myself.
Although I would like one as well.
This color makes my eyes pop.
What color are your eyes, Joe?
Blue.
Ah,
Like your blue swag.
My blue swag.
swag. Normally, there's a little TV monitor. You can see what's happening.
And we're very quiet usually during this.
No, they're never.
Not at all.
They're never quiet. In a normal, normal podcast, they would be quiet.
Who are you talking to?
What? Oh yes, yeah. My imaginary friend. Sorry, I was spiking and I was annoying me. I had to figure it out.
Feverishly typing and it's making me nervous, Joe.
It's just my part of the open.
Hello.
Well, good day.
Howdy.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Rural Pastors Talk. To our Facebook and YouTube folks, we probably look a little different.
Very different.
We're sitting next to each other.
Hey.
Joe and I are 6 feet apart.
It's
Chuckles.
the camera. Add 6 feet.
And you'll have to ignore these men here temporarily until we introduce them. But looking forward to being together with you now. And are you ready?
Yes.
Do I have an? I'm not ready.
Okay.
Hold on.
Well,
In my mad dash, I never pulled up.
You
the
do have a
things
part
we-
in this first part.
Yeah, that's why I figured I'd pull it up.
oh, you need the notes.
Yeah.
And we will stall for you.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, TJ.
What'd you do today?
I picked up some folks and drove down here
You're so kind,
to the
Joe.
place where we're at. People that I love very much.
We are at Camp Susquehanna. Actually, Josh,
Yo,
would it completely mess you up to point the camera down the hall here?
are you guys ready? Here we go.
Okay. So people can get a sense of Camp Susquehanna in all its beauty.
Nice slow pan there, Josh.
This is...
With no dead air.
yeah, that's right. That's true. This is the... What is this? The main...
I would call this the main...
The dining hall.
Yeah.
The chow hall. Derek, you've probably been here more.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the... What do they call it?
Just the dining hall.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, Josh makes his way back to his seat. We shall prepare. So it's a little different today. We are recording here with other people in the room. It's very late at night.
Indeed.
Most of us would rather be in bed right now. But here we are serving the kingdom of Christ. Very humbly.
I saw you. I don't know about that statement.
All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Okay, church, we're entering the second year of our discipleship initiative. Reach the people and bring them to the steeple. We're just walking step by step together on how to make disciples, and today we are on step number 114, meaning you're all just 201 steps away from graduating as fully devoted followers of Christ.
Well, church, as you know, it's our job to reach our community with the gospel and to make disciples. Now, God's given you all the gifts you need. So we're just going to do this in a real and non-contrived sort of way. So we're going to go out into the community and we're going to give them some bottled waters with our church name on it. So just get out there and get it done. Godspeed.
How does your church handle discipleship? On this episode of Rural Pastors Talk.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Rural Pastors Talk, a podcast highlighting the advancement of Christ's kingdom in rural places just like the town you live in. The rural church is not the baby pool we splash around in before moving on to bigger opportunities. It's not the place we're confined until we can take off those training wheels, and it is not God's penalty box as a punishment for breaking the rules. No, Jesus died for his people. And as long as Christ's people live in rural places, a vibrant, healthy, multiplying presence of his church will be there too. My name is TJ Freeman. I am the lead pastor at Wellsboro Bible Church in beautiful Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, where I am not at right now.
Nope.
We are south of Wellsboro by an hour, or if it's springtime, 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks warmer here in the springtime. We are in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and we are at Camp Susquehanna, which is just a beautiful facility. I don't know how many acres of God-glorifying countryside they own, but a number of acres. They've got some beautiful lodges and an excellent dining hall, which we are recording in right now. And I am joined here by...
Hey, everybody, I'm Pastor Joe Wagner from God's Family Fellowship Church in Wellsboro, Pennsylvania. But like TJ, I'm not in Wellsboro either.
And why are we here?
Well, we are here for the Gospel Coalition Central Pennsylvania
SenPen
Conference. It's
Yeah.
been really good.
It has been really refreshing. We're finishing up. This is kind of the capstone of our year. A bunch of churches from this region have partnered together for the advancement of the gospel in places just like this. And so we're closing out the year with this pastor's retreat here, and it's been a really good time. And we have with us a couple of brothers who we'll introduce later.
Mm-hmm.
First, on this episode of Real Pastors Talk, you changed it
I
on
did
me.
change
and
it.
You didn't change it everywhere.
Our success in discipling
Or failures.
or failures.
Yep. We interview Derek Van Ruler and Scott Boyer, who I may call Clint before the end of the podcast, on taking discipleship to the fourth level. Joe reviews a life-saving device that he deeply appreciates, and a quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer to put in your coffer, and it might be a Whopper. So, Joe, you came up with a wonderful short banter
All
question
right,
for us.
so give me a percentage. You might not be able to do this like with out of every 10 people. That's more of a ratio, but you can do a percentage.
Joe,
if you
I
want
was
to.
a history major.
Out of every 10 people that you disciple, how many of them do you feel really confident in that they will be able to disciple somebody else soon?
I have no idea. None. I am optimistic that the Lord will bring some fruit to bear because he intends for pastors to disciple. He intends for Christians to disciple. We talked earlier in the conference today about that's just normal Christianity. And I know that the Lord works through those means, so I'm confident the Lord will do something.
So, like, out of all the people that you're discipling, they're not speaking into anybody's lives at all?
No, I think that's happening.
Good. That's awesome.
Yeah, I just don't know how to put a percentage on it, and I don't know how fruitful it will be 5 years from now or 10.
Oh,
Josh could apostatize.
I pray not. Good night. Thanks
No,
for throwing
It's
me under the bus.
entirely possible.
It isn't completely possible.
Yeah.
No,
unless
it's not.
Christ holds me fast.
There you go.
There we go. All right.
Indeed.
So we are here this evening, and it's been a long time coming. I had the opportunity. You've met Derek.
Wait, you didn't answer the question.
Well, I kind of dodged right out of it.
And you made the question. So, Joe,
I did.
out of every
Hey,
10%, what ratio of people do
I
you
would
think?
have to say it's probably, this is going to sound horrible, but it's probably 50% or lower,
Okay.
I would think. People that I'm speaking. Because you get, man, there are some times when you just pour into somebody's life and pour into somebody's life and pour into somebody's life, and then all of a sudden, poof, where did they go?
Yeah, that's true.
Right. But the great joy of being able to pour into somebody's life and then having found out that, oh my goodness, they sought somebody else out and they prayed with them, they encouraged them, they shared scripture with them. Like, that is a phenomenal, phenomenal thing. But it does not happen nearly as much as what I would hope it would.
Is most of your discipleship one-on-one, or are you doing it in groups?
Combination.
Yeah.
Of both of those things. I would say everything that we do as the church is part of discipleship.
Touche.
Throw that out to Brian Davis.
Now, Joe,
Yes.
we are not alone here today.
We are not alone. So we are here with two men. I'm actually pretty humbled. I have not been this nervous to do a podcast in a long, long time. We've had guests in the studio before, but these guys, I don't know why I'm nervous.
You've even
They're
reviewed
next level.
this said guest's
I did.
ministry
I know,
before.
maybe I didn't do a
That's
very
true.
good job. But anyway, we have Derek Van Ruler here, and this has been an interview that's I've been looking forward to for a long, long time. Derek has, I'm just going to let him share with you what he's going to share, but he has invested lots and lots of time, and Derek is very, very gifted in making connections and putting together, I don't even want to say it's a system, but a guide for discipleship, and he's going to be able to explain it a whole lot better. And I had a chance to meet Scott here this evening. I had met him before, but what a great dude. And he is a pastor whose primary focus is in discipleship and equipping people to disciples. So it's a really cool opportunity for me even, and for you and for all of us, to hear what they have to say about discipleship this evening.
Brothers, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you both being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, just so people can identify you, Derek, can you just quickly say hello?
Hello.
And then the
What
voice-
church are you from, Derek?
I am from Sunbury City Church, about an hour south of here, so Sunbury, PA.
Okay, very good. And then the podcast voice of the night.
Yeah, Scott Boyer.
Look at
and
that.
I'm from
It's like
Manual.
butter.
Smooth.
Derek, you look good. He sounds good. So,
Put us
I
together.
appreciate that.
Put you together,
We
yes,
have a
that's right.
rocket
Dynamic duo.
organization.
We're doing all right.
so brothers, Jesus is...
Where's Scott from?
Yeah, sorry, you
Oh,
got
I'm
cut
sorry.
off.
Yes, I
I am
apologize.
from Emmanuel Bible Fellowship Church, and I'm also from Sunbury. So Derek and I
It's a
pastor
well-discipled
about,
city.
3 blocks from each other?
Yes,
Close
you
partners.
can see
Yes.
our buildings from each
Wow.
other.
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Very good.
And we like each other.
And you're not in
We do.
competition.
No.
Wow.
No, we actually get together to pray and read the Bible and encourage each other. So,
Awesome. Well, Jesus has called the church to make converts. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes. Well, yes and no.
Okay.
So we do need to make converts, but not just converts, people who follow Christ. All of life, so their entire life wants to have Jesus at the center. So yes, but not entirely.
Okay, so conversion is part of a process.
Yeah,
But it
definitely.
shouldn't be where we stop.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So you've started an organization called Fourth Level.
Yep.
And do you think that there are 4 levels of discipleship? Is that what this is about?
Yeah, so years ago I was really impacted by 2 Timothy 2:2, and there
It's a kind of like different belts that you attain. Like, do I get a black belt in discipleship? Is that how it works?
That's level 5.
Yeah. Yes, I can get you one. Right now you're on blue belt.
I'm on the blue belt. I'm at the
Clearly.
blue T-shirt.
Yeah,
Nice.
he's not even wearing one yet.
Didn't know it was an option.
Yeah, that's your bummer. So 2 Timothy 2:2, Paul exhorts Timothy at the end of his ministry that what Paul has entrusted to Timothy, he needs to entrust to faithful men who can teach others also. And so that's Paul, the first level, to Timothy, the second level, to faithful men, which is the third level, to others also, the fourth level. And I find that we can get the first, the second, maybe the third, but man, the fourth level is just really difficult.
So your goal is to see not just men and women who are being discipled, but
Yeah.
that are actually engaging in discipleship to all of those levels?
Yeah, really, I think our goal is to help Christians to not be a clog in the pipe. So often we receive, maybe the pastor gives, someone receives, and it just kind of sticks, or if they're really good Christians, it goes to the next level, and it just stops, and we become clogs in the pipe. And the only reason why we're sitting here is because the pipe got unclogged. And by God's grace, so important to us. And we need to do a better job of equipping our people in that direction.
I think in the real context, and I'm already off script, but
Script.
what script? There was no script. In the real context, in churches that I've been in or been associated with or have seen, I think that there's a real dearth of discipleship at the very beginning and outset. Like, that cycle has not even begun.
Yeah.
It hasn't even started. I mean, there are mature men and women in those churches that are Christians that were not discipled themselves or very minimally discipled, and be like, all right, you've got the basics, and there you go.
Yeah.
And so when you say 4 levels, that seems very intimidating. High goal, a high bar.
So lay this out for us. What are you getting at? Is this a discipleship program?
Yeah.
Is this a call to action of some sort? What's kind of behind this?
Yeah, it's kind of a conglomeration, if you will, of multiple things. One is the reality that I think we have in the United States just kind of programmatized everything that we do. And so if we just send people through a program, somehow they're going to become a mature Christian on the back end. It's almost like the Industrial Revolution in the church. And unfortunately, we're realizing that the church is dying because of some of that, because we've produce nominal Christians.
Right.
People don't know how to take the gospel and apply it to every area of life. And so what we do is, to fix that, we then create a new program. And the reality is that we need a program only so much as to kind of have a finish line so we know this is what we're shooting for. But we also need to have the organic to know, like, this person in this moment needs this area of growth. And what I found is so often maybe a pastor, if he's astute, kind of knows that. Maybe his leadership might know that. Maybe. But definitely the average Christian would probably not be able to sit down and say, what does it look like for me to grow into maturity? And so that's kind of where it gets lost in the line, if you will. You kind of, they just don't know the finish line that we're all shooting for. We really tried to, what is that finish line that the Bible calls us? Let's just spell that out. And how do we think about getting there?
To back you up and kind of affirm what you're saying, I think that there's probably a lot of pastors who sit down in elder meetings or leadership meetings, and if they even talk about spiritual matters where people might have a need in those sorts of areas, where somebody's immature, where somebody's got a continual sort of a sin or a temptation that they're continually falling to, they just kind of throw their hands up and be like, what's wrong with Bill? Mm-hmm. Like, there's something wrong with that dude. Let's pray for him. And then we pray for him and be like, next week or next month, and we have our next meeting, how's Bill doing? I don't know, right? Well, let's pray for him again. And they don't really have an idea of where to go and what to attack. And just, it's so big, discipleship is, and no place really to know where to start.
Yeah.
So with that, where do you start? Who is responsible for making disciples?
Well, really, it's every single Christian, right? That's the call of Matthew 28, 18 to 20, that we're all called to make disciples of all nations. And we as pastors should be setting the example, which I think is a little bit difficult, right? Because so often we can think we're setting an example by preaching a sermon, and yet we're not expecting all of our people to preach a sermon.
Right.
And so how are we setting an example in a day-to-day life that they would get, oh, that's what you're wanting me to do? So it's really a call for everybody.
So is the fourth level something for ministry leaders? Is it something for individual churches? Can you kind of help us get a grasp around who's to be using this and what is the tool?
Yeah, so it's kind of a tool and resources and really even broader than that too. It really started with this desire of, let's just spell out what the finish line is so that we can all know, almost kind of put it up on the whiteboard and say, that's where we're shooting at.
So this is a fully devoted follower of Christ.
Yeah, this is what, if by God's grace, he grew people in our church, these are the qualities that we would want. And I could argue, not to be simplistic, I could argue that we could kind of boil it down to 36 attributes, if you will. Kind of 4 pillars, 3 levels within that, and really looking at, okay, these are the things that we would want people to be proficient in. So how do we begin to walk alongside them in relationship to grow them into these areas? Not that they're proficient in everything before they start reproducing, but we're growing them into that. And then we're giving them resources that they can help somebody else to grow into that. Because we often learn on multiple levels. And so as someone's learning it, applying it, then they should actually take it out and start coaching and teaching others to do the same.
So just a little behind the scenes, how did this come about? You're sitting dreaming as a pastor. Yeah. What needs are you seeing? And then how did you go, okay, I need to not just tell people, here's some great resources you should go grab, but I want to actually put a new framework around this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is this kind of grew out of my own frustration, maybe even sinful frustration. So I came from a college ministry that was just big on reproduction, for better or worse.
Most colleges are.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. It is after 10 o'clock.
It is after 10 o'clock when we're recording this episode.
This was a Christian ministry. No, we know that even happens in those, right?
True.
But they were big on reproducing disciples, for better or worse. And when I moved into the church, I started using that language and said, hey, guys, we want to be a church that is reproducing disciples, seeing people raised up, sent out, starting new churches. And as I would use that language, people would nod their heads, but nothing was happening. And I kept just kind of banging the drum. After about 3 years, I started to realize they don't actually know what I'm talking about.
Right.
They have an idea, but it might not be the same thing. You know, Bill Clinton back in the 1990s when he was impeached, they asked him a question that included the word is, and his famous response is, what is? You know, he wanted to know a definition. We had a definition of discipleship, or at least I did in my mind, and they had a different one. And so I had to kind of clarify, here's the finish line. Here are 36 markers, if you will, that we want to see people grow into. And I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to get you the finish line, and I'll even get you some Bible verses, books of the Bible, some external books that'll help you to help others grow in those. And so I created all of that and sent that to my leaders, told them about it, and still nothing. And so that kind of led me to think, what are the hiccups or what are the barriers? And some of it was just they didn't have tangible resources. They weren't going to read a book. They could read the Bible passages, but they might not fully understand how that fit. And so they needed some more tangible resources that we now created out of that, created lessons to kind of help with that. I always think about the game of telephone. So if Josh tells you a secret and you tell it to Joe, by the time it gets to me, it's completely different. Mm-hmm. Well, how can Josh ensure that the message is the same getting to me? And so that's really the genesis of creating these lessons, is to ensure, hey, you don't have to follow the lesson to a T, but this is a skeleton that we make sure that as he's teaching you how to read the Bible and you're teaching Joe and Joe's teaching me, Josh as the pastor knows, yeah, that's basically what I said, and we're ensuring that everybody is learning how to read the Bible. And so it was really kind of creating these lessons. And now as I talk with pastors, I'm finding out they actually need something broader than that. They just need to sit down and brainstorm this on a whiteboard and say, how do I get started? I'm not ready for lessons. I might not be ready for a whole structure, but how do I get started? And where do I go from there?
So here's a question for you. Do you start at number 1 and then work your way from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way up to 36?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned 36 here a couple different times.
Yeah.
And just to kind of paint a picture for folks who are listening, like 36 again sounds intimidating a little bit. So lay that out for us in a way that give us the 50,000 foot view of what that looks like.
Yeah, so one of the things I found often is that most discipleship programs are just that. It's a structured program. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Once you've done those lessons, great. This person somehow is mature because they've read or gone through a lesson. Or it is entirely organic, that is reliant upon that person's natural skills. And we've got to figure out, like, how do we allow for the organic nature, but also give some sort of vine or some sort of trellis for the vine to grow. Not to steal a book, but I did.
Heard that before.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. They actually got it from me.
They stopped at the 3rd level, though.
Yeah, they did. That's their problem.
Dever and Lehman got pastor's talk from us, too.
They did, I'm sure. They regularly listen to this every night. I see him tweet about it. But really, so there's no numbers, because the whole goal is that it's holistic, like these 36 things. And so maybe TJ is not struggling with prayer, but he's struggling with confession. And we talked about that a lot tonight at the conference. Maybe he's struggling with confession. That's where me as a mentor or a guide for him would want to say, hey, let's dig in there and talk about how to grow in confession. And there's really even kind of multi-levels there. There's the level of teaching him and then him saying, yeah, I get it. And then you're like, no, I don't think you get it, but it's cute. Go home and try it. Then he comes back, hey, it didn't work. Okay, now you're ready to listen. Now let's talk more about confession. And then he learns, and now I can say, hey, why don't you go and teach Josh confession? Like, you've actually embodied it. You've learned the art that Jesus is really teaching us to have in communion with him. Now why don't you go and take that and teach it to Josh? And so you can really kind of jump all around in that sense. There's no logical progression, but there's just kind of a holistic nature of, hey, you need all these to really have a fruitful and mature life.
So in all 36 categories, are you trying to get that is not the stopping point, but it's a mark of faithfulness when they've gotten to the point in each of those 36 levels that they are imparting that wisdom or that lesson or that maturity to someone else.
Yeah, because I think so often we think we stop when we teach somebody, and that's it. And we don't think about the process. I heard something when I was in college that it takes people 7 times before they actually learn something, which is why we get so frustrated as a pastor, because we preach and our people don't get it, and we preach again, and our people don't get it, and it takes 5 more times after that.
And a guest preacher.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
They always say it better.
Yeah, they always do.
They
They
do.
end up being on the 7th time, actually.
That's
It's
right.
got-
Yeah,
Always.
Yeah, and so one of the things is I was also formed by one of my professors. She really talked in seminary about how we learn in 3 stages. Like when you teach your kids how to ride a bike, you teach them the information. They like I just said, they shake their head. I get it, Dad. They go ride. They skin their knee. They come back. You comfort them. You put them back on. You help them, and then you push them out. And eventually, Lord willing, they grow up to be parents, and they start teaching others. And we need to think not so much about getting content out. That's just one level. There's the catechism where we help people to understand the truth, but we also counsel them in that truth, and then we begin to coach them to coach others. And I think that those are some of the reasons that it stays at the pastoral level or it stays at the leadership level, and it doesn't go to the next level because it's just difficult and hard work through that. Do you have anything to add?
I was just going to say, speaking of hard work, well, you're ready to go on that. Go, Scott.
Yeah, so I would even just say to your question, Joe, it's not a checklist of 36 that you kind of go through,
Right.
And the content almost doesn't matter as much as the process.
Yeah.
And so, if we think of it almost backwards to say, normally in discipleship we're like, let's just get this content out there, let's get it there and drive it home. And if you think about it backwards, how do we use this content to be discipling about the process of discipleship? And so, good opportunity. The content is great.
So
I helped write some of it.
I was just
so-
going to say, you guys just
But-
came up with the content right out of your brains,
So-
right? Just out of your own minds.
No. We're digging in the Word and asking good questions and helping people understand how to ask the same good questions in the discipleship process. But thinking about it backwards too helps you get to that aim, right? So if we're looking at a passage like Colossians 1, where we're talking Colossians 1:28, we're talking about how do we push people toward maturity? Why do I toil?
Right.
So help people toward maturity. The lessons help us get there.
Scott, I'm going to give both of you guys the same question, and you might be able to answer it using 4th level. But what are some obstacles that you think that we face in the rural church in particular? Obstacles to discipleship in the rural church.
Wait.
that we face?
I'm glad you asked Scott because Derek can't answer.
Okay.
Sunbury City Church. I can't even believe that you're sitting at the same table with all these rural pastors.
Why? Have you been to
I bet
Sunbury?
you sing, "You're the God of this Sunbury City."
That's right.
That's good.
That's right.
Yeah.
We have a softball field, which makes us rural.
Oh, there you go.
So
How many
just-
people live in Sunbury?
just up the hill,
I think 9,500.
something.
Yeah.
Somewhere around
It
there.
Why
shrinks
is it-
every year.
But it's not a city, really.
Yeah. Why the name of the church
Yeah.
that? You want the political answer or
Well,
the
You
real answer?
judge who may be listening and answer as you wish.
Especially when I tag you on Facebook.
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, somebody down the line said you should have the name of the community in your title. You should probably call it community or city, and then you should call it church. And they said, okay, let's do that.
So it's not just because you're from California.
No, they actually came up with the name before me.
Got it.
So I would
So-
have put like Baptist or something.
Oh, wow.
First, Second, Third Baptist.
Call it what it
That's
is.
right. Let people know.
Now, so you identify as a rural pastor.
Yeah. It's
He
it's
said
really
that painfully.
well, I say it because it's like I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday, and just the reality that I grew up in a town. I call it, even call it a town, of 70,000 people.
And then you moved to the
And
city of
for
9,500.
for me, that was like tiny.
Mm.
In California, like that doesn't even get put on the map. That's how small it
A
is.
little tiny dot.
Yeah. And then moving out here and thinking that would be like the 5th largest city.
Yeah.
And so it's really a shock to me and anybody who actually knows me that God brought me here, which is why I know that God has me here, because it wasn't originally my choice in that sense.
I love that. That's just like a, sorry, Scott, I cut you off. That's just like a little side narrative of this whole thing is, here you are, both of you, and the Lord's using you in a rural place. And for you, I don't know your story, Scott, but you just saying that, Derek, that you didn't even ever expect to be in a place like this. This was like, you know, a flea on a dog's back to you kind of an area, if I can use an expression that I just made up.
Well, I think
I
this
was
whole
going
process.
for a speck on something,
But I think this whole process is like, I would have, like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I would have never said, put me in a rural context.
Yeah.
And then in that context, I would have never said, hey, put me in a church that doesn't understand discipleship. Put me in a church that's going to, in some senses, as I talk, like I'm just going to get frustrated that they don't understand. And honestly, I wasn't being a good communicator. It was on me. Like none of that process would I have said, yes, that's what I want.
yeah.
And it's kind of like honestly, this whole ministry is really birthed out of what the Lord has done in me.
Yeah.
And then I think Scott could say the same thing for himself.
Well, I love that. And I just want to thank you for being
Yeah.
faithful to serve in a rural context in
Yeah.
a way that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
And then use this opportunity for our listeners to call other brothers
Yeah.
to come to places like this. If you're
Yeah.
living in a big place, consider coming home if you're from a rural place.
Yeah.
Or just ask yourself the question, would the Lord have me to go serve in a rural place?
Or consider staying home.
Stay
brother.
home, baby.
Brother from
Yes.
Northumberland.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Now-
and that's
go ahead.
my story. Is I grew up in Northumberland, Pennsylvania, right across the river from where I serve now, and went to Lancaster. I worked in college ministry for a little more than a decade, and ended up at a church in Westchester, Pennsylvania, kind of Philadelphia suburban there,
Not rural.
and not rural at all.
Scott,
And,
what was the church name?
Christ Community Church?
Okay.
Yeah, and so served there, and felt the call to come back home, and so
How long ago was this?
a year and a half.
Okay.
So a year and a half ago, and the reason was because I wanted to see Christ made known in my community, you know, the community I grew up in.
What's your specific job there at your church? You're the equipping pastor.
Specific job.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I do a lot in our small group ministry. So growth groups is what we call them. But a lot of one-to-one discipleship, a lot of training. So even coming back and seeing our Sunday school at Emmanuel and shifting some of that Sunday school to say, how do we train our people in the context they're already used to coming? So they're coming to Emmanuel for Sunday school, learning about Scripture. But how do we even begin to shift some of that to say it's a training ground to now be able to send them out into their context, in their job, in their neighborhood, with their families, with their neighbors, and to make Christ known.
Amen. I wish we had a fifth microphone because the Reverend Dr. Adam Pereira has just slid up to the table.
I could slide mine over. Yeah.
I can set one up quick.
He's silencing us. Yeah, that's awesome. So for both of you, I love that. I wanted to hear that call to serve in hard places. Rural places are hard places to serve, but the Lord is doing a major work here, and it's just as important as any other place in the world. And so I'm glad you guys are serving.
I'm proud of that segue, TJ.
in this way. Good. I teed it
Why
up.
why is rural ministry hard? What are some particular things that we have to deal with as rural pastors, discipling folks in a rural community that we love tremendously? So, Scott, for you growing up in that area, but then also going to a much larger area and pastoring a much larger area, and even doing ministry in a university setting, what are some of the things that encourage our brothers by saying, "Hey, we're dealing with the same sorts of things too"? Like, what do we have to overcome?
Yeah, I think Derek and I would both attest to the fact that college ministry is easier ministry because people are available, and even in a rural context, people aren't as available. And so, in comparison to ministry in Westchester, a lot of people could make their own schedule in Westchester. That's not necessarily the same in the context I'm in now. So if I want to get deep in discipleship with somebody, I got to wake up early or stay up late. Is usually what ends up happening. Our people are intelligent people, but they're not reading people. So for me to grab a book and give it to somebody in my congregation and say, "Hey, read Calvin's Institutes," it's not going to happen. It's not
Tell
going to
you
happen
what I'm gonna
like
institute,
that.
boy.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, that's a particular struggle. And I would say that probably reflects a little bit what I think is maybe the bigger struggle is I get in the way a lot. And so having been a guy who has gone to Bible college, done seminary, I expect everybody's discipled the same way I'm discipled, So they're growing the same rate I am. They've got the same amount of time to do it. They've got the same passion and determination to do it. And sometimes that's just not there. And so it's got to go a little slower, maybe pieces rather than the whole. And it's just a slower, harder process. And I get in the way sometimes.
That's so encouraging to hear because, I think that's true a lot of times for us as pastors. And I think that's part of why the dream is often to go to bigger places because you see the potential for faster change, faster growth, maximum impact. And here you might slog it out in the trenches for 30 years and not see a whole lot of fruit, which is what I think your question was leading to in the beginning, Joe, the banter question. And that's okay. Like somebody needs to be ministering in that way. And then the tools like what you guys are providing and resources and help and coaching and all that goes along with that really it's an encouragement to keep going and it's some help along the way. So I appreciate that. Somebody was going to ask a question.
I was just going to say I appreciate your humility in saying that because being a disciple maker student, discipleship looks generally one way, and it's because it's college ministry, so you're a student discipling other students. Coming to Wellsboro Bible and learning discipleship in the local church in a rural area was kind of shocking for me. It's like, you don't normally just get lunch with guys. Like, we do get breakfast and stuff with men, but not always, I'm meeting with a guy right now, and I have to meet him at like 6, 7, or 8 o'clock at night because he can't just come to the mess hall, in the afternoon or at 2 p.m. and get coffee. So
I love how Scott said that. I either have to wake up early or stay up late.
That was great.
And for me, it's wake up early, so it's definitely past my bedtime.
Oh, man. You're doing good, brother.
So.
Yeah. Yep.
There also seems to be a lack of resources too, like in the sense of your church before, like there is multiple staff that
correct.
could handle some of these things. And so even if there's multiple staff to disciple, but also if you wanted more leaders, you just look to your staff and they would step up and do it. And it's almost like we need people to step up, but oftentimes we're a lot of solo pastors in rural areas. And so it kind of, the onus falls on us to either try to do everything or try to raise up the people. And there just seems to be a lack of resources to raise up the people, maybe even a lack of people to raise up who talking about discipleship with people is a scary word. I mean, you might as well say massacre or something like that. Like they just do not like, what are you talking about?
Because it requires change.
Yeah, and
transformation.
And it's a formality.
Yeah.
In a context where maybe we're used to just talking about, well, I go to church to worship the Lord, to, I don't know, be good, to because I'm supposed to, and then you add this word discipleship in there, and it can be a bit jarring, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think the commitment level that comes along with that is like, whoa, you're expecting me to do X, Y, and Z, and what I've found is that has actually caused a lot of rural pastors to attempt, and then when they kind of hit that first barrier to be like, I'll just go back to preaching. And man, I love expository preaching, but there's two things I know. One is my people are not singing the outline of my sermon on a Wednesday morning when they're brushing their teeth.
True.
They are singing the songs that they hear or whatever. And I also know that God can do anything through preaching, but my sermons are about 45 to 50 minutes, and most of my people watch one show that's longer than that, let alone however many other shows. And so what ends up happening is that there's just such a vacuum for ongoing relationship where we're constantly getting people in God's word and being formed and shaped by that. And sometimes There's just no background for that in our area. You know, again, the bigger city, they've done that, but there's no background for that in our area. Or it's daunting, or it's just daunting even for the pastor to say, that's another thing that you want me to do.
And that's what I was going to push back on, because, you know, you mentioned that there's not a lot of resources.
Yeah.
But I think all of us can relate to a little bit of resource overload in the sense of, okay, here's one more program, one more book. You know, Joe and I talked earlier. We have several books on a shelf of different discipling programs or thoughts or whatever. So what would you say sets this apart or makes this useful to us in a sense that it's not just try this another program and then the next year you'll try another one, or that maybe you'll pick up that book?
So I think there's maybe, I can think of a couple. One is on the 50,000 foot level is just us coming in and having an outside perspective on your situation and being able to kind of strategically walk through whether it's fast or slow. You know, your context will matter and might change the speed.
So sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
you personally will walk through this with people.
Yeah, so I actually met with a church not far from ours and did a strategic session with their leadership of like, where are you at, where do you want to go, and what are some initial steps. And I've been meeting with a couple other churches like that.
Hey,
Met
I was
with this
just
brother. Go
going to
for it.
jump right in and say, I'm a host of Real Pastors Talk. I should know everything about discipleship. But, yeah, right, whatever. Actually, Derek's going to come and meet with me here in March. We've got a date figured out. And last time he was up, he said, what's going on? Well, where are you guys at? Tell me about what you're doing. And I shared with him like some stuff that we had. And he offered really, really good insight. And I shared with him tonight. I'm like, dude, I knew that what you told me was right, but that was a blind spot for me. Yeah. And so having somebody able to come in and honestly and being for you and being like, hey, here's this. Let me share this with you as an outside observer. And it's almost like you're getting like, oh, yeah, I should have known that. But it's so valuable to have somebody else to be able to come in and share that.
But isn't that true? Like everything I said to you wasn't rocket science.
Right.
But you are so ingrained in what you're doing. You just need an outside brother who is strategically minded to say, hey, I think if you change your language here and you start bringing these guys along, you'll start equipping people and you'll see the overflow of that. And so that's really like one of the levels of just saying, hey, how do we just come in and help churches and help pastors to think about creating a culture of this and really themselves start with it. But also the resources are really, when you get down to it, it's not just a finish line, but there are lessons that are just one-page lessons. Like there's 4 different parts to it. There's here's the goal, here's the passage, and like the mountain peaks of the passage. Like TJ, you're pretty astute, and so you'd read my lesson or Scott's lesson and be like, psh, I found out 50 other things. Awesome. But maybe Bill in your church is just learning, and he sees that, and he's studying his Bible, and oh, that's what the passage is about. Like it's like a bowling alley. Like just don't end up in the gutter. I don't care how you get a strike, just don't end up in the gutter. And that's what that first quadrant of the lesson is really trying to, like, don't end up in the gutter. And the second quadrant is, okay, here are some questions that you can ask in a group setting, whether it's one-on-one, 1-on-3, small group, whatever it might be, to really discover the main point of the passage. Don't ask all of them. I am a verbal processor, and I need a conversation partner. And it's lonely sometimes out here.
Yeah, especially as a solo pastor, right?
Yeah. And so those questions are just an opportunity to have a conversation partner that might spur your mind to think, oh, I should ask this other question, but that helped me get there. And the last 2 quadrants are how do we apply it personally, which is something we always do. But the funny thing I find is really that last quadrant. Let's all get together in a small group because we need community. Let's be together. I need you. You need me. Now, how can you personally apply it? Whoa. Like, we all want patience, right? And we often think patience happens by taking a pill, praying, or whatever. And we're thinking, oh, that's what's going to happen. And the reality is often God makes me patient by bringing an annoying person into my life and saying, That's how you learn patience, is by doing it together.
I'm offended, brother.
I didn't say I'm learning it from you. But if you are convicted in this moment, you can repent. We will
Yep,
pause this.
Could be the Holy Spirit.
Okay, yes, yes.
And we're back.
Or it could be Scott's voice that sounds like God.
Yes, it does.
Just saying.
Yeah.
But, just that applicate, like, how do we apply it together and live it out together? And so the lesson is again, like, I can prepare that, but I can also give it to Josh, who I'm not sure where he's at, and just say, hey, brother, let me just walk you through this for a little bit. And as I do that over time, then he can begin to take those steps. He might be too afraid to do it. Hey, brother, this is something that can help you along the way. And the odd part about it is because everything's based on Scripture, over time, if he does enough lessons, I've actually taught him how to read the Bible, and he didn't know that,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Sneaky discipleship.
Yes,
It's kind of sticky.
Yeah. That's how you get to the 4th level.
that is.
Black belts are sneaky.
Yes,
Um,
you skip. There's like a secret trap door.
Yeah, I just say something in addition to that is how's it different than the program or the book or something you've got on your shelf? The last 10 discipleship books that have come out is you've got 2 guys in rural ministry who are rooting for you.
Yeah.
And so it's not just content or strategy or anything like that. It's we want to see you labor in the right direction with a good aim, and so it's not just let me pull that off the shelf and do it. And we're praying alongside you. We're one of my first bosses said, you impress from a distance, but you impact up close. And so we want to get in there. We want to get in there and figure some things out with you along the way too.
It's great. One of the things that we struggle with sometimes as rural pastors is inaccessibility. We can't access some of the people who would be able to coach us or help us along this way because we're just so removed from it. And a lot of rural guys don't want to go to the bigger places to get that access. You guys are accessible, which is so helpful.
Yeah. Well, and to Scott's point, like, we are rooting for you, but I also feel like, for better or worse, I kind of have a PhD in the School of Hard Knocks where I want to, like, I've done a lot of dumb things, and I want to help you to not do dumb things. And so whether it's the lessons or the other coaching that we do, it's not stuff that's kind of theory. It's stuff, hey, we've done this and we've seen this work, or don't do this. That's a landmine, and I'm still trying to, like, get surgery to reattach that appendage. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
So I feel like that adds more life to what we've done.
Now, some of our listeners are local.
Yeah.
What would you say to a brother in a small town in Texas or Idaho or Ireland?
I was just about to say
Robert
Scotland.
Adair, if he hears this and he thinks, I want this, and he finds out he can't have it, he might give us a scalp and lug, which we don't want.
What is that?
I don't know.
We
but
haven't figured it out
It's
either.
not good.
I think it hurts.
Yeah, it's not
Okay,
good.
sounds
It's
good.
bonk over the
Yeah.
head with something hard.
Or he'll
so
send
what,
you a haggis.
what do you say to brothers who would be interested in this but are not in this region?
Well, isn't COVID wonderful?
I was just going to say.
I mean,
Oh, boy.
let me back up.
Some have
If you
called
did-
it something different. But
Yes, yeah. If you've experienced any pain from COVID, clearly not. But COVID really allowed us to kind of pull back and rethink. I think we're all having to rethink the church, rethink what discipleship looks like, and allowed us to really flesh a lot of this out. But it also allowed all of us to realize there's a thing called Zoom. And there are so many meetings that I have or we're having that are just on Zoom, where we're just talking through different things with pastors. I had with a college ministry actually the other day, just met with a guy for 3 hours on Zoom and kind of coaching him how to lead his team a little bit. So
Yeah, awesome.
Definitely.
So this is available not just for people in Central Penn,
Send.
but other places as well.
yeah.
Great. Is there anything we should have asked you that we did not ask you?
Go for it, Scott.
Oh man, that's pretty open ended.
It is pretty
Exactly.
open-ended.
Yeah, I was really hoping to share my favorite ice cream flavor.
Oh, we
but-
haven't
We're not
gotten
there
there
yet. We're not quite
Okay.
there yet.
Put
That's
the
a
brakes on.
surprise.
Put the brakes on.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you didn't know about
Yeah,
that.
It's peanut butter.
So
It's been-
Yeah. Okay. Well, Joe.
Well, hey, where could they get a hold of you?
yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
Yep.
Go for it. Well, you can get a hold of us by looking at fourthlevel.org. That's the number 4th level.org.
I can do
There's
something.
contact information
Josh will
on
link
there.
it.
Fourth level. I'm actually going to show it quick. Let me just see.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to show it.
Yeah, so you can fill out some
talking, Derek.
contact information on there. Yeah, I think just the biggest thing is we as pastors, yes, let's preach well, let's disciple well, but in some senses we need to begin to think that the Christian life is all of life. It's not just Sunday morning, Wednesday night. It's the whole entire life, and that's what we're trying to do. Is we want to help you to equip your people to live for Christ in every single area of life. And we really feel confident that we have, by God's grace, kind of fleshed some of that out.
There it is.
Another important question. How do I get one of those soft, beautiful T-shirts?
They are $25.
Okay, well.
Josh, yours is free.
Yo, let's go.
You
Praise the
also
Lord.
have to be smaller than me, so that is a requirement.
That's a rule.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Got it. Sounds
So, Derek, is there anywhere I should direct the audience on your website? I'm currently there. They can see it. Anything I should show them that you...
Yeah, I mean, there you'll just find a lot of the same information, the coaching that we offer. We also offer workshops, too.
Okay.
That's another thing that I didn't even think about to mention, but just the reality of a lot of times people say, man, I really want to disciple, or I really want to help our groups to move more intentional, not just, hey, let's study a passage and sing Kumbaya and go our ways, but like really live it out. And what I'm finding is that we've all been to a Bible study where we walked away thinking, I hope I don't have to go back. And we've all been to a Bible study where we're like, can we start again in 5 minutes? This is awesome. I want that. And there's a reality that part of that is simply based on culture, based on things that a person or a leader will do that really help. And so we provide workshops to really help you think through how do you create a culture where discipleship can really thrive. And so I'd really direct them to just look at that as well. And then we have lessons. When we're done, there's going to be 120 lessons. Trying to give you multiple options. So if you want to teach someone on prayer, there's going to be 3 different lessons, so you don't have to be pigeonholed into one. You've got options. We're about halfway done right now, and so check some of them out. Let us know if we're heretical. We will fix that. But no, in all fairness, like we do want to just utilize this to really help you succeed. And the other thing in rural pastor ministry, our people don't have time, so they don't have 3 hours to plan for a group, and we're really trying to help aid them in that process as much as possible. And I've had guys say, hey, I've really done this, and it takes me 30, 45 minutes to prep. It's really simple. And then they'll say the conversation we've had during the small group or during the discipleship, we've never had that deep of conversation. I've had pastors who've been pastoring for 15 plus years who've said, I learned things in my small group that I didn't know before by
That's
going
great.
through those. So I
Praise the
check
Lord.
out the lessons through that. So it's been
awesome.
encouraging.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you both for being here. Really appreciate your time. It was very kind of you to stay up late and record with us.
Indeed.
And it's been a real pleasure. So thanks.
Thank you for setting up this retreat so we could record Real Pastors Talk there.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That was the
that's
whole
right.
plan.
All right. Well, Joe and I have a little business left to do. You know why?
Why?
Because you're still here to make disciples. You know why you're still here?
Why are we still here to make disciples, DJ?
Because of your stuff.
Real
Pastors
can use.
reviews. Joe, you had a scary moment.
I
not
did. The
long
Lord
ago.
was with me.
Yes. You learned how to weld.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
So I was redoing a room in my house, and I wanted to put a couple more outlets in. And old house, I went to the breaker box, flipped off the breaker that I thought that wire was.
What did it do to you?
Oh, boy.
Why you got to flip it off?
Well, because
Sorry,
110's pretty hot,
There you
dude.
go. Yeah.
So I did. I stuck my pocket knife, and you guys all know how much I do love pocket knives. So I took my pocket knife, and I ran it right down that yellow Romex wire.
Oh, Joe.
And guess what we had? Pop. I welded a hole in my favorite pocket knife.
Did you panic?
I had no time. The electricity moves fast.
I still would have screamed even if it was delayed.
So that being said, my wife said, you're not allowed to kill yourself.
Spend some money.
Spend some money. So we went to Lowe's, and I didn't even know what they're called. I got one of, it looks like a big fat pen that lights up.
Yeah, I was
on
gonna
the
say, when
end.
I can't find mine, I ask my wife, "Where's my electrical beeper?"
And it's this beautiful, wonderful, life-saving device that you take it and you put 2 AAA batteries in it, and you touch a wire, and it lights up if it's hot or not. Yeah, and if you touch a wire and it's green, that means you can live. But if it's red, that means don't touch that one.
You die.
And you die. So all of you guys out there that are much more handy than I am, that know what that's called, send us an email and tell us we're stupid. But that's my thing that a real pastor can use. Review.
Did it take you a minute to trust it, or? Right
Oh
away?
yeah, I definitely. I was like, I worked at it like 4 or 5 different times, and
Good.
But after it worked, it saved me lots of times. I didn't have to run back to the breaking box every time.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Pretty good.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing that. And before we move on to our quote, yikes, we've got a little bit of a problem.
Right. We didn't ask our guests the special questions.
That's not the problem I was thinking of.
But it's
it
a problem.
Works. It is a problem. So we're gonna, through the miracle of
Not editing.
we're gonna call them back. Hey guys, come back. Derek,
Yeah.
thanks for coming back.
Yes.
We forgot to ask you 2 questions.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Joe, you want to go first?
What? I got to switch it up.
Wait. Is Derek going to answer and then Scott's going to answer? Or
They
are
both
you
got
gonna-
to give it. We're going to get 4 answers.
Okay, right. But are you going to say, like...
They'll
Never
both
mind.
answer the first one.
Yeah,
then-
Favorite
Thank
hymn.
you. That's
favorite
what I
hymn.
wanted.
Your favorite hymn.
Favorite hymn?
Your favorite hymn.
Probably In Christ Alone. Yeah.
What do you like about
That's
it?
a correct answer.
Well, I left a church over it.
Because they wouldn't do it, or?
No, because they changed the wrath of God was satisfied to the love of
It
God.
was magnified.
The love
American
of God.
Gospel, too?
Well, it was the love of God. This is actually when I was living in Germany, and I sat down with the pastor, and he said, yeah, God doesn't have wrath. And I said, oh, okay.
Whoa.
So we talked for a few meetings, and I said, I think I got to leave
Progressive.
this church. Yeah.
Very.
So that's
is so
always
sad.
stuck with me. I liked the song before, but then that really is like, okay, this is like solid
Important to sing
theology.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
important to sing about. Yeah.
That's good. Scott, what
Scott.
about you? Favorite hymn?
I do love He Will Hold Me Fast. Really, really enjoy that. So love the benediction from the book of Jude. And
Shout out to
so-
Matt Merker.
yes,
Yeah.
very much so.
Very good. And then the more important question. This is going to be life-changing for all of us. What is your favorite ice cream?
Go ahead.
So Turkey Hill just put out this tandy.
I thought you were going to say
tandy cake.
turkey-flavored ice cream
Yeah,
for a second.
It would have been a
no.
first.
No, I do eat a lot of different kinds, but turkey is not one
And
of
Turkey
them.
Hill is a regional place, and I do believe somebody has mentioned Turkey Hill in the past. on the
Yeah, and
podcast.
I think it's them. They just put out a tandy cake. You know
Tandy
those
cake.
tandy cakes? They're like
I think so.
every good church has somebody that can make a good tandy cake. It's that
There's a piece of manna
Cake,
that I'm missing here. What is
cake,
the candy cake?
peanut butter, chocolate.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
It's got like the hard shell
Yeah.
chocolate on the top.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my new favorite, and I eat it often.
Over discipleship meetings.
No, well, I eat it often to make sure I still like it. So
Yeah, you have to test. I had a type of a cake today that I'd never had before. One of the brothers here at the retreat brought from the South a jelly cream pie. It's like an oatmeal cream pie, but it has kind of a cookie outside and then jelly and then the cream from an oatmeal cream pie on the inside. No-
Sounds like a serving of fruit to me. So I
Yes.
count that. I'll count that in my day.
You get 5
There
of
you go.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Derek, what's your favorite ice cream?
Yeah, mine actually has to do with the turkey as well. If you've ever heard of Foster Farms.
Nope.
No. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I am really out of place here. So Foster Farms grows turkeys and all of that, but they also, most people don't know, they also have ice cream.
Uh-huh.
Their ice cream that is chocolate with peanut butter. And I don't mean like swirl or cups. It's actually have slabs, like
slab
full
peanut butter.
on slabs. Like it cuts from the top of the carton down to the bottom.
Nice.
So you could be selfish and just scoop out the whole slab.
I'd like the
Well,
peanut
when I go back home, my dad and I will eat one time 9 half-gallons in about a week.
Wow.
And we both fight over the slabs and leave the chocolate
Yeah.
there.
So you can't get that around here.
Nah, Turkey Hill has something like it, but it's just not the same. I'm
Field trip.
sorry.
Yeah.
Field trip.
Field trip is necessary.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's a
So they
little
don't make.
expensive.
I thought you were going to say
We
that
should
they
just
make
go-
the ice cream out of the turkey eggs.
They
Which
might.
There is
I don't
a
know.
place locally that makes ice cream from duck eggs.
Who's
Duck
that?
egg
I
ice
don't
cream.
know how
It's
that
the duck
works.
egg ice cream shop.
Where's that? at?
Penn, New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, Josh,
Yes,
are we allowed to go to our emergency now?
I think so.
Uh-oh. Emergency.
It's emergency, TJ.
How can we solve the SOS, Joe?
By subscribing. That's the first one,
He
right?
really wanted me to ask you. didn't he?
Yeah, I was like, hey, everybody out there, subscribe. That'd be really helpful for the algorithms. So you know what subscribing is.
So would
Subscribe.
offering a review. If you'd be willing to offer us a review, that really helps. It encourages us, unless it's a negative one. Then it just helps us do better.
What's that? It's like oil on our head.
Yeah, that's right.
No.
Running down the beard of Aaron.
Yeah.
That's
We've got
that's
Mixed metaphors. And,
No.
Isn't it?
no.
It's not.
I know. Anyway, if you would offer a
We really
review-
are pastors, I promise.
If you would offer a review, that would encourage us. It also helps with the algorithm. And it encourages other people that may want to wonder, should I listen to this podcast or not? And if they read your review, they may be apt to. And then lastly, you can what, Josh?
You can share.
How did you do that?
You can do it by word of mouth. You could tag them in our latest episode. You could.
How does a millennial encourage somebody to do that?
Just yeet out your share.
I never say yeet, by the way, just so you know. Anyway.
I did learn it from you, though.
Well, I went through a phase. Anyway, you could do any one of those things, and it would be approved by a millennial.
Well, we are going to close our time together today with a quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. This is from his book, The Cost of Discipleship. If you've not read that book, it's very good. I'm hoping that Scott and Derek would recommend it, and they're both nodding in the affirmative. So this is a pithy quote. We'll leave you to just think on this. Bonhoeffer says, discipleship is not an offer that man makes to Christ.
Can you repeat it?
Yes, I can. Discipleship is not an offer that man makes to Christ. What is it? Think about that one. Put that in your rural pipe and smoke it. Thank you for being here for this episode of Rural Pastors Talk, the most professional episode we've recorded yet. And have a wonderful day.
Adios.
Raised your Ebenezer.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of Rural Pastors Talk, a podcast highlighting the advancement of Christ's kingdom in rural places just like the town you live in. Josh, if people want to reach out to us, what can they do?
They can email us at ruralpastorstalk@gmail.com. It's ruralpastorstalk@gmail.com. They can find us on Facebook, or they can tweet at us at ruralpastors.
What if they want to yeet at us?
Don't eat at us.
Goodbye.
We have 2 minutes left, Adam.
Are we clear?
No.
If by clear you mean...
Don't wreck my microphone.
Yeah.
Here, I can do a thing. Give me a sec.
So it's okay if people hear this.